Well, it's very hard to say. It's the easiest part, so to speak, is done. I mean, it's not the first time that all the parties or the majority of the parties agree on a prime minister designate. It's actually the third time. Well, I'm being a little bit pessimistic, saying it's the easiest part. It's not something that is totally negative. Actually, it's a rather good step for all the parties to agree on a new prime minister designate. But this is not at all the end of the road. As you said, the next step and the biggest step, the one on which all of the other governments have failed, of the other prime minister designates have failed, is the formation of a new government. And now we are in a situation that is actually very similar to the previous one. Why? Because the main opposition to the formation of a new government is President Michel Aoun, who is de facto leading the Maronite Christian bloc, which is the one that prevented Saad Hariri, the previous prime minister and the previous prime minister designate, from forming a new government, because fundamentally they want to have veto power over that government, have a number of ministerial seats, and the current situation kind of favors de facto the president because he's the head of the Supreme Council of Defense, which gives him executive powers during the crisis. So he doesn't have an interest in letting a new government be approved unless he's got certain guarantees, which we do not know the new prime minister designate is in a position to give him.
Now, two other parties I want to sort of add on here to this issue, the protest movement that's taken to the streets so much. Wonder how his appointment now fits in line with what the public's been wanting to see. But on top of that, where does Hezbollah stand on Mikati?
Yeah, so the Mikati is definitely part of the elite to an extent. He is not, however, the heir of to a dynasty like Saad Hariri is, or he's not a representative for any of the big parties, which give him some of a shot and explains why the Sunnis and the Shias kind of supported him for this post. But in terms of the signal it sends to the protest movement, he definitely is part of the bankrupt political class, having been prime minister in the past 3 times and having been accused of corruption. He doesn't fit in this new agenda that the streets is demanding. On the other hand, Hezbollah did seem relatively keen on having a new prime minister named Mikati. It's very unclear at the moment whether they actually mean it or whether they just want to play that game, play that card, and pretend to support the formation of a new government, just not to be accused of being the ones plunging the country in further poverty. The big question is whether Hezbollah, who is an ally of the Christian, an ally of the Michel Aoun bloc, will put pressure on Michel Aoun to approve this new government, which can be politically costly for them, or whether they're going to do as they've done in the past few months. They're just going to sit back and look at what's happening between the fractious politics and the formation of the new government. It depends on whether they think chaos is in their interest or not, which is actually an actual big question. They do not have big interest in Lebanon collapsing entirely, but they do benefit from the contrast between their own social services, which work quite well during this crisis, and the quasi-absence of social or state social services. So they do have some interest in chaos. The big question is whether their interest is so big that they will refrain from supporting the creation of a new government. That is a question I cannot answer, but it will be very interesting to see what the Hezbollah says and how he acts during the negotiations going forward.
Yeah, perhaps most significantly there. Nathanael Chouraqui, thanks for being with us.